7 signs someone is secretly wealthy, but never tries to prove it. The richest person you know probably doesn't look rich at all. No Rolex, no Mercedes, no designer clothes. They look completely ordinary. Meanwhile, that guy flashing Louis Vuitton and leasing a BMW he can't actually afford, probably drowning in debt and desperate for you to think he's successful. We've been trained to spot wealth by all the wrong signals. Flashy cars, big houses, expensive clothes. But real wealth, the kind that buys freedom, not attention, is almost always invisible. Here's the truth that changes everything. Studies show most millionaires drive Toyotas, shop at Costco, and wear clothes you wouldn't look twice at. The performance of wealth and the reality of wealth are completely different shows playing on completely different stages. Today, I'm revealing 7 signs someone is secretly wealthy, but never tries to prove it. Once you know these signs, you'll start noticing quietly rich people everywhere. And you'll realize the flashy ones were fooling you all along. If you want to recognize real wealth and maybe become secretly wealthy yourself, smash subscribe and comment "Quiet Wealth" right now. Stay until the end, because sign number 7 explains why everything else on this list exists. Here's the first sign, and it's hiding in plain sight in every parking lot you've ever walked through. Sign number 1. Why do millionaires drive old Toyotas? Here's the first sign, and it's hiding in plain sight in every parking lot you've ever walked through. Secretly wealthy people drive boring cars. Not sensible luxury boring. Actually boring. The 10-year-old Toyota Camry is boring. Honda Accord with 120,000 miles is boring. The Ford F-150 has seen better days. Boring. They could buy any car on the lot with cash, and they chose the one nobody looked twice at. Their car is transportation, not identity. It gets them from point A to point B without announcing anything to anyone at any red light along the way. Meanwhile, look at what everyone else is doing. Financing cars they can't afford to look successful. Leasing new vehicles every 3 years so they never actually own anything. Car payment is bigger than their investment contribution. Driving around in a rolling billboard advertising wealth they don't actually have to strangers who don't actually care. Here's what secretly wealthy people understand that most people miss completely. A car is a depreciating asset. It loses value the moment you drive it off the lot and keeps losing value every single day. Every dollar tied up in a car payment is a dollar that isn't compounding in an investment account. The approval of strangers at traffic lights pays exactly 0 dividends. Security comes from a portfolio, not a parking space. A mechanic told me about a pattern he noticed over 30 years in the business. Customers with the newest, fanciest cars were often behind on payments, stressed out, negotiating repair costs, and sometimes couldn't pay at all. Customers with boring, older cars paid cash immediately, completely calm, often mentioned they were investing the difference. The flashier the car, the emptier the bank account. The more boring the car, the fuller the portfolio. I've seen this pattern thousands of times. It never fails. Studies confirm what that mechanic observed. The majority of millionaires drive cars that are at least 2 years old. Many drive the same vehicle for a decade or longer. Warren Buffett, worth over $100 billion, famously drove the same car for years until his daughter complained it was embarrassing. He didn't care. His identity wasn't wrapped up in 4 wheels and a logo. A car choice reveals everything about someone's relationship with money. The need to impress strangers with your vehicle is insecurity about wealth. No need to impress anyone is security about wealth. That boring car isn't a sign of poverty, it's a badge of financial confidence. Their car doesn't impress anyone in the parking lot, but wait until you see where they actually live. Because secretly wealthy people choose their homes with the exact same invisible logic. Sign number 2. Why do rich people live in normal neighborhoods? Here's the second sign, and it confuses everyone who thinks wealth means mansions and gated communities. Secretly wealthy people live in surprisingly modest homes. They could afford the mansion on the hill with the circular driveway and the fountain in front. They chose the comfortable 3-bedroom in a regular neighborhood instead. No impressive address. No house that makes neighbors wonder what they do for a living. Just a normal home in a normal area that serves their life without consuming it. Now look at what most people do. They stretch to the absolute maximum mortgage the bank will approve. Buy a house to impress visitors who rarely have. Spend 40 to 50% of their income on housing alone. End up house rich and cash poor. Beautiful home, empty investment accounts, one emergency away from financial crisis. Their address looks impressive on paper, while their net worth looks like a tragedy. Here's what secretly wealthy people figured out that most people never will. Keeping housing under 25 to 30% of income leaves serious room for investing. A bigger house means bigger property taxes, bigger utility bills, bigger maintenance costs, bigger everything. Square footage doesn't buy freedom, and nobody ever retired early because their guest bedroom impressed their in-laws twice a year. Warren Buffett still lives in the same house he bought in 1958 for $31,500. The man is worth over $100 billion. He could buy any mansion on earth, and he chooses to stay in a modest home in Omaha, Nebraska. Mark Zuckerberg's house is surprisingly ordinary compared to his net worth. These aren't accidents or quirks, they're patterns. Research consistently shows that most millionaires live in middle-class neighborhoods, not luxury enclaves. A real estate agent shared something fascinating with me. Clients who demanded the biggest house they could possibly afford often ended up stressed, house poor, and sometimes even foreclosed. Clients who deliberately chose homes well below their approval amount, they stayed calm, invested heavily, and became genuinely wealthy over time. The people buying the smallest homes they could be comfortable in consistently became the richest clients I ever worked with. Every single time. The pattern never broke. Impressive houses often mean impressive mortgages. Modest homes plus fat investment accounts equal real wealth. Secretly wealthy people optimized for freedom, not appearances. Their house won't make your jaw drop, but their brokerage statement would. Boring car. Modest home. But here's where it gets really interesting. Because secretly wealthy people say something that sounds absolutely crazy until you understand the psychology behind it. Sign number 3. Why do rich people say they can't afford things? Here's where it gets really interesting. Because secretly wealthy people say something that sounds absolutely broke until you understand what they're actually doing. Secretly wealthy people frequently say, "I can't afford that." At restaurants, at stores, when friends suggest expensive vacations, their friends think they're struggling financially, maybe even feel a little sorry for them. Poor thing, must be having money troubles. Meanwhile, that poor thing has a 7-figure investment portfolio and could buy the entire restaurant with cash. They're not broke. They're using a phrase that keeps them from becoming broke. Watch what most people do instead. They never say, "I can't afford it," because it feels embarrassing. Their ego won't allow the admission, so they buy things they actually can't afford to avoid the discomfort of saying no. Credit card debt piles up. Savings account stays empty. They perform financially while actually drowning in financial stress. Here's what secretly wealthy people understand about these 4 simple words. I can't afford it doesn't mean I lack the money. It means this isn't worth my money. It reframes every spending decision as a conscious choice rather than deprivation. The phrase protects against lifestyle inflation, that sneaky creep where spending rises to match income and then exceeds it. It keeps the wealth-building mindset active, even after wealth has been built. A millionaire friend of mine said, "I can't afford that," constantly for years, at dinners, during shopping trips, and while planning vacations. Everyone in his social circle assumed he was barely getting by financially. Some friends even offered to cover him occasionally. At his retirement party, he finally revealed his net worth. $4.2 million. The room went completely silent. Friends were stunned. He explained with a smile, saying, "I can't afford it kept me from becoming someone who actually couldn't afford things." That phrase protected my wealth better than any investment strategy I ever used. It was my financial immune system. The phrase isn't about money at all. It's about mindset. Rich people who keep saying, "I can't afford it," tend to stay rich. Rich people who start saying, "I deserve this," often become poor surprisingly fast. Language shapes behavior. Behavior shapes bank accounts. 4 words, repeated consistently, can be the difference between building wealth and bleeding it. "I can't afford it" doesn't mean I lack money. It means I won't trade my financial freedom for this purchase. The phrase keeps me wealthy by keeping me intentional about every single dollar. They say they can't afford things even when their accounts say otherwise. But here's another thing secretly wealthy people almost never do. And it's the biggest tell of all when you know what to listen for. Sign number 4. Why don't rich people talk about being rich? Here's the biggest tell of all, and once you notice it, you'll never unhear the silence. Secretly wealthy people rarely discuss their finances. They don't mention their investments over dinner. Don't casually drop their income into conversations. Don't update anyone on their net worth or their latest real estate deal. When money comes up, they change the subject or listen quietly. Their wealth exists in complete silence. Private, protected, nobody's business but their own. Now watch what everyone else does. They talk about money constantly to signal status. Mention expensive purchases within minutes of making them. Bring up investments to establish a position in the social hierarchy. Post vacation photos specifically to show they can afford nice things. They need others to know they're doing well because somehow it doesn't feel real unless witnesses confirm it. Here's what secretly wealthy people figured out that loud money people never will. There's nothing to prove to anyone when you're genuinely secure. Talking about money attracts problems, requests for loans, jealousy from friends, scammers with opportunities, and family members with sudden financial needs. Security comes from having wealth, not from discussing it. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Money talk is almost always insecurity talk wearing a confident mask. 2 business owners at the same networking event. The first guy constantly mentioned his success, his deals, his investments, his properties. Everyone at the event knew he was doing well. Made sure of it. The second guy never discussed finances, just asked thoughtful questions about other people's businesses. Seemed like a regular middle-class professional. Years later, plot twist. The first guy went bankrupt. Had been leveraged to the ceiling and performing well the entire time. The second guy is quietly worth $8 million. Built it slowly while saying nothing. The one who talked about money didn't actually have it. The one who never mentioned it was loaded beyond anyone's imagination. Old money families have taught this for generations. Never discuss finances publicly. Self-made millionaires learn it through experience. Talking about wealth rarely benefits the wealthy person. The volume of money talk is almost always inversely correlated with actual money. Those who have don't need to tell. Those who tell often don't actually have. My bank account knows my net worth. That's enough. I don't need anyone else to know because their knowing adds nothing to my life and potentially subtracts from it. Silence about money is confidence about money. They don't talk about money at all. But pay close attention to what they do talk about, because this next sign reveals exactly where secretly wealthy people actually spend their mental energy. Sign number 5. Why are wealthy people always reading books? Here's where secretly wealthy people spend their actual energy, and it's not where you'd expect. Secretly wealthy people are obsessed with learning. They're constantly reading books, taking courses, asking questions, and exploring new ideas. Not just about money, about everything. History, psychology, science, biography, philosophy. They're curious about how the world works in ways that seem almost childlike. While everyone else watches Netflix after work, they're 3 chapters deep into something that makes them slightly better than yesterday. Now look at what most people do with their free time. They stopped learning the moment formal education ended. Entertainment fills every available hour. Social media, streaming, scrolling, consumption without growth. They think learning is something you do in school, not something you do for life. Focus entirely on earning more money without ever investing in becoming more valuable. Here's what secretly wealthy people understand that changes everything. Earning follows learning, always has, always will. Knowledge compounds exactly like money. Each thing you learn connects to other things you've learned, multiplying your capabilities over time. Every skill acquired opens doors you didn't know existed. Curiosity isn't just a personality trait. It's an investment strategy that pays returns for the rest of your life. Warren Buffett reads for 5 to 6 hours every single day, calls it his superpower, says compound knowledge works exactly like compound interest. Bill Gates takes famous reading weeks where he does nothing but consume books. Most CEOs read 50 or more books per year, while the average American reads 4. These aren't coincidences. These are patterns that reveal something important about how wealth actually gets built. I noticed something interesting at my local library. Same faces every week, reading business books, biographies of successful people, and skill development guides. Assumed they were students or maybe unemployed folks with time to kill. Got to know a few of them over the years. Several were quietly millionaires. One explained it perfectly. The library is my wealth-building headquarters. Every book is a free conversation with someone smarter than me. The greatest minds in history are willing to share everything they learned for absolutely nothing. Why wouldn't I be here every single week? I'll never know enough. Every book, every conversation, every course makes me slightly better than before. That compound growth in knowledge is exactly why my compound growth in wealth continues. Learning isn't something I do when I have time. It's the reason I have wealth. They invest obsessively in their own knowledge and growth. But here's a sign that reveals their character even more deeply than their habits. Watch carefully how they give money away. Sign number 6. Why do secretly wealthy people give money anonymously? Here's a sign that reveals character even more than bank accounts. And it's beautiful when you understand what's really happening. Secretly wealthy people give significant amounts of money away. Serious money. Life-changing money for the recipients. But here's the thing. They do it anonymously or so quietly that almost nobody knows. No press releases. No buildings with their names on them. No social media posts about their generosity. No galas where they accept awards for being wonderful. Just money moving silently from their accounts to causes they care about, with zero audience and zero applause. Now watch what most people do when they give. They announce it, post about it, make sure everyone knows how generous they are. Charity becomes performance. Giving becomes content. The dopamine hit comes from the recognition, not from the actual impact. They're not really giving. They're purchasing social approval with a tax-deductible receipt. Here's what secretly wealthy people understand about generosity that changes everything. True giving doesn't need witnesses. Recognition actually diminishes the act somehow, turns something pure into something transactional. Anonymous generosity feels different than public generosity. Better, cleaner, more real. When nobody knows you gave, you know for certain that you gave for the right reasons. Chuck Feeney gave away $8 billion during his lifetime. $8 billion. And he did it so quietly that for decades, almost nobody knew. He lived modestly, flew coach, and wore a plastic watch. Could have had buildings and foundations and awards named after him across the globe. Choose silence instead. When asked why, he said giving anonymously was simply more satisfying. The Jewish tradition calls this the highest form of tzedakah. Giving where the giver doesn't know the recipient and the recipient doesn't know the giver. Pure generosity without ego contamination. A small-town scholarship fund received an anonymous donation of $500,000. Everyone wondered who could possibly have that kind of money locally. Years later, after her death, the donor was revealed. A quiet, retired teacher who drove an old car, lived in a small house, and wore simple clothes her entire life. The town was stunned into silence. She'd accumulated wealth through decades of simple living and wise investing, then gave it all away without ever wanting a single person to know. True wealth. true generosity, true character. My giving isn't about me, it's about impact. If I need recognition to give, I'm not really giving. I'm buying applause. Anonymous generosity is the purest form because it expects nothing in return. They give without needing anyone to know because they don't need external validation for anything. And that brings us to the final sign, the one that ties everything else together and explains why secretly wealthy people live the way they do. Sign number 7. Why do rich people protect their time so fiercely? Because it's worth millions. Here's the final sign, and it's the one that explains everything else about secretly wealthy people and how they actually live. Secretly wealthy people guard their time like it's the most valuable thing they own, because it is. They say no frequently and without guilt. Turn down invitations that don't align with their priorities. Won't drive across town to save a few dollars. Won't sit in meetings that could be emails. Won't waste an afternoon on something that doesn't matter just to be polite. Their calendar is protected like a vault because they understand what most people never figure out. Time is the only asset you can never get back. Now watch what everyone else does. They give time away freely while guarding money tightly. Waste hours to save small amounts. Say yes to every obligation because saying no feels uncomfortable. Trade their most precious resource for their least precious one without ever calculating the exchange rate. Wonder why they're exhausted and broke despite being busy constantly. Here's what secretly wealthy people understand that changes the entire game. Time is the only truly non-renewable resource in existence. Money can always be made again. Time cannot. You can earn back a lost dollar. You cannot earn back a lost hour. Every minute spent on something meaningless is a minute stolen from something meaningful. And here's the real insight. Wealthy people don't accumulate money to buy things. They accumulate money to buy time. Time freedom is the entire point. I asked a millionaire neighbor to help with a weekend project. Expected an easy yes since he was retired and seemed to have nothing but time. He politely declined. I was a little offended, honestly. Then he explained something I've never forgotten. I protect my time more fiercely now than when I was building wealth. Time freedom is what I was working toward all those years. Now that I finally have it, I'm not going to give it away carelessly just to be nice. My time is the trophy I earned. He wasn't being rude. He was being wealthy in the truest sense of the word. Every sign before this one serves this final truth. Boring car, modest house, frugal phrases, wealth silence, constant learning, anonymous giving, all of it protects resources so they can be converted into the only thing that actually matters. Time freedom. Secretly wealthy people already won the game. Everyone else is still playing. I didn't build wealth to buy things. I built wealth to buy time. Every hour I own completely is proof that the strategy worked. I guard my time because time was the whole point all along. So there they are. 7 signs of someone who is secretly wealthy but never tries to prove it. But here's the real question you should be asking yourself right now. Remember what I said at the beginning? The richest person you know probably doesn't look rich at all. Now you understand exactly why. They're not hiding wealth. They're simply too secure to display it. 7 signs of secret wealth. They drive boring cars that don't impress anyone. They live in modest homes that don't scream success. They say, I can't afford it, even when they absolutely can. They never talk about money with anyone. They're obsessed with learning instead of earning. They give generously but completely anonymously. They guard their time like it's worth millions, because it is. Fake wealth screams because it desperately needs your validation. Real wealth whispers because it needs nothing from anyone. Secretly wealthy people escape the exhausting performance of wealth to actually enjoy the freedom of it. Once you see these signs, you can't unsee them. You'll notice quietly wealthy people everywhere, and realize the loud, flashy ones were just performing a show they couldn't actually afford. Which sign could you start embodying today? Comment below. Do you know someone secretly wealthy? What sign gave them away? Tell me your story. Hit subscribe because next week I'm revealing exactly how secretly wealthy people built their fortunes in the first place. True wealth isn't having enough money to impress others. It's having enough money to ignore them completely. Loud money is usually borrowed. Quiet money is usually real. Which one do you want to be?